So, I recently saw the Backrooms movie, and other than it creeping me out a whole lot, I couldn't help but draw a comparison between what the Backrooms is, as presented in the movie, and the current state of social media. But before I get into that, I'd just like to say that you should watch The Backrooms. After I left the theater, I wasn't exactly sure what the deeper message of the movie was. The only thing I could come up with was that it was about memory and loss, perhaps even memory loss itself, existential dread, and stagnation. The two main characters both seem to have lost a lot and hold in their trauma, dealing with it in different yet comparable ways. Mary can't let go of the past and tries to sell people a cure for their trauma, while Clark also cannot let go of the past, but deals with it by drinking and holding on to rage. It's also interesting to note that Mary and Clark are both salesmen, one selling self-help books and the other selling shitty old furniture. Both things that are a bit useless if you ask me. Clark's furniture seems crappy, all of it in muted 90s colors, and there is even one part where a chair snaps under his weight. He's selling bunk-ass furniture. Now, I'm not knocking all self-help gurus and books, but I will say it's a saturated market full of grifters. I believe Mary really wants to help people. She's not necessarily a grifter, but by the end of the movie, we see how she really feels towards Clark come out, and I couldn't help but wonder how many of her patients she actually feels this way about. Both characters are damaged, so to speak. Both are holding on to deeper trauma, and both enter the backrooms of their own accord. Clark to escape reality, Mary to find Clark. If I had to rate this movie, I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10, maybe even a 9. Yes, I liked it that much. It had some boring parts, but it was sufficiently creepy and unsettling. So much so that when I got home and took a nap, I woke up a number of times from having nightmares about the backrooms. When I went to sleep that night, I had even more nightmares. The movie is creepy as fuck and deserved all the praise it's getting. The movie is incredibly tense, and upon watching it a second time, I still found myself wound up despite knowing what would happen. Scenes that take place in the actual backrooms are unsettling and claustrophobic, recreating what it would really feel like to find such a strange space. The film opens with Mary explaining the ideas of loops and habits and behaviors that keep us, in her own words, walking in circles. She says we're reaching for the same solutions over and over again, thinking each time it'll take us somewhere new. While she's monologuing, we see her standing in front of her childhood home being demolished. Later in the film, we learn she has trauma associated with this house, as her mother seemed to be dealing with paranoid schizophrenia. She's taking chlorpromazine, not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, which is an antipsychotic, and in fact, I think they spelled it wrong in the movie, but I digress. So her mother wouldn't allow Mary to leave the house. During Mary's childhood, her mother is eventually institutionalized, something that would leave a deep wound on anyone. The monologue reminded me of the common saying that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results. Clark especially seems stuck in a loop of ill behavior, indulging in drinking to soothe his ongoing issues. Issues, might I add, that seem to be entirely his own fault, something he has much trouble admitting to. One thing that I didn't expect from the movie was the character study of Clark. In the beginning of the film, he admits that he hurts people, saying it's just the way he's wired, and maybe because of that, he deserves to be alone. This is quite an interesting thing right away and got me wanting to learn more about the character. This is the same with Mary and the opening scene of her watching her childhood home get demolished. This made me wonder what could be going on in her head, only to quickly learn that she's a therapist. There's a part in the movie where Clark is listening to Mary's tape in his car and she says this: "Your consciousness is a room full of memories that is constantly evolving. But as you walk through life, the untrained mind can start to build walls, put up barriers to protect itself from the outside world." Now immediately this made me think of the way the backrooms are described, but also Clark himself. His idea that he hurts people just because he's wired that way tells me he isn't interested in changing or becoming a better person. He's accepted his bad behaviors and is ready to deal with the consequences of said behaviors, which is being alone, by telling himself he deserves to be alone and that he's just wired a certain way. He's stagnated. He's built up walls of resentment and anger and has no interest in tearing them down. I think everyone has some walls built up. It's only natural to want to protect yourself from the harshness of the world once you've seen a bit of it. But in Clark's case, he has been building these defense mechanisms since childhood, and by his own admission later in the movie, it's gotten him nowhere. I don't think it's a coincidence that his dream job is that of an architect. By the time Mary finds him in the backrooms, Clark has accepted his fate and says he likes it there. It's like a safe space to him. In the backrooms, he doesn't have to deal with other people. He doesn't have to make sacrifices for them or change his ingrained behaviors. Yes, he's alone, but as previously established, he thinks he deserves that fate. When he talks about the still lifes having no feeling, only existing, he envies that and wishes he could exist in the same capacity. On the other hand, there is a part towards the end of the movie that I believe represents Mary finally letting go of her trauma, fighting back against an entity with an object she always keeps by her side. The object breaks, and I believe this is a metaphor for her finally confronting her past and breaking free of it. Now, that's just my interpretation. I could be way off the mark. You tell me in the comments what you thought of that scene. Now, if you clicked on this video, which isn't likely because my channel is all but dead, then you're probably wondering where I draw the comparison between social media and the Backrooms. In the movie, Clark describes the Backrooms as misremembering themselves, and the second I heard that, I thought of internet memes and content machines. Once an idea takes off, the content surrounding it amps up to 10,000. Hell, the originating idea behind the Backrooms themselves is a great example of this. Look at how much content this single idea has created. There are copies of copies of copies of Backrooms memes and content left, right, up, down, everywhere you look. And the longer the idea has persisted, the further away from the original image the content has gotten. Remember, the Backrooms used to be nothing more than a concept generated by a single image of shitty wallpaper and fluorescent lights with a few lines of text insinuating that you're not alone there. Now we have thousands of levels, endless numbers of entities, and an ever-shifting understanding of what the Backrooms are. Another example is the rampant use of AI art and content, which are literally just copies of authentic, better art. The Backrooms remembers something, and the more times it remembers, the less accurate the thing it remembers becomes. In the movie, there seems to be an aspect of it recreating rooms from your memories. Well, this is how I interpret it anyway. And perhaps that is why Clark feels so safe there. Now, have you ever caught yourself scrolling through endless reels, shorts, or TikToks for hours on end? Have you noticed how everything on social media is a copy of a copy, a memory of a memory, if you will? The more you scroll, the more copies of content you see, but they're all different, eventually growing into something else entirely. There might be hints of the original idea, but eventually that'll disappear too. Viral trends and memes blow up, slowly transform over time, and then usually go away forever. I've been a long-time critic of social media, believing it to be a black hole of soul-sucking nonsense for the most part. Now, to be clear, I don't think the Backrooms movie is necessarily about social media or AI, though I've seen other people make this speculation in relation to AI, but I certainly can draw comparisons. The more I thought about it, the more I came to realize that the Backrooms is actually a perfect metaphor for how we experience social media these days. This connection might not jump out at you right away. After all, the Backrooms are a lonely, Kafka-esque infinite nightmare of yellow wallpaper and shitty fluorescent lights buzzing in your ears, while social media is a place supposedly, emphasis on supposedly, brimming with life. But that life isn't real. It's images and copies of something real. And the more time you spend on social media, needlessly scrolling, the less real everything feels. Again, it's like you're watching copies of copies over and over, memes recanted and recycled in slightly different ways depending on the content creator. In the Backrooms, you wander aimlessly and endlessly between rooms that aren't quite the same, but have the same basic design principle. On social media, you can scroll an infinite amount of content, but you'll notice much of it is the same thing, just a little different, repeatedly. Just like the Backrooms, modern social media traps you in a loop of doom scrolling forever and ever. The content machine never runs out, just like the rooms in the Backrooms never cease. In a sense, you are no clipping out of reality for an extended period of time while doom scrolling. Think about how you end up in a social media rabbit hole. You open your phone just to check a quick notification or look something up, and then 2 hours later, you realize you've completely detached from physical reality, lost track of time, and have transported into a bizarre digital space. As someone who spends a lot of time on YouTube, I can tell you that I often am lost in content, and I know I'm not the only one who feels that way. There is something on the internet for everyone, but it all feels so disconnected from the reality we live in. There are skits, content farms, videos about movies and books and video games. There's short-form content, long-form content. And it's all made to suck you in and keep you occupied for as long as possible. I don't think Kane Parsons necessarily thought of social media while making his web series or this movie, but it's hard to ignore the comparisons when you look at it from that lens. Social media makes it easy to ignore your problems and be distracted by something else, much like the Backrooms made it easy for Clark to run away from his problems. He had a failing business, a failing marriage, and a life going nowhere out in the real world, but inside of the Backrooms, none of that mattered. When we're in crisis, we often turn to comforting habits and coping mechanisms. Lots of people talk about being addicted to social media and using it to run away from their problems. Just like Clark turned to the Backrooms for safety, people turn to social media to escape the reality of their situations. People watch other people's glamorous lifestyles and wish it were them. They watch videos of people analyzing and breaking down various books, movies, and video games instead of coming up with an analysis of their own. People flock to live streams to watch someone else experience something, whether it be them going outside to cause havoc or just playing a video game. My point is that social media sometimes robs us of real-world experiences. Whether it's because we don't have the resources to do them or because we're bedrotting, the results are the same. There are people suffering from real social media addiction, where they choose to be on social media over other, more fulfilling activities. Just like Clark, who chooses the backrooms over reality, we are seeing millions of people choose social media over the real world. While doing a bit of research, I stumbled across this quote. It's from an article that I'll link below. Social media addiction really falls under the same category as any other addiction, Dr. Borland clarifies. It activates the pleasure center of the brain, whether through likes, reconnecting with someone, or just seeing something pleasurable to you, and that brings you back for more. Social media has the capacity to be addictive and have you abandon all your real-world responsibilities and connections. And again, this reminds me of Clark choosing the backrooms over the real world. In a way, he's become addicted to the reality the backrooms have built for him. It's safe in the backrooms for him because all of his real-world problems are easily ignored there. I remember watching a video a few years back where someone pointed out that social media creates another reality, and the Backrooms movie reminded me so much of that I couldn't shake the feeling during my initial and second viewing of the film. The reality social media often builds is one of comfort, of escape from burnout, trauma, and loneliness. The algorithm feels safe because it asks for nothing back from you, except it hijacks your brain and steals your time. Spending hours in this new reality can feel safe and comforting, but in reality it is keeping you from living your real life, just like living in the backrooms feels to Clark. So what is the takeaway? To be honest, this isn't a video telling you to abandon social media. After all, I'm posting this on social media. I believe we can live a healthy existence with social media if we don't let it take over our lives. But we can glean a lesson or two from Clark and realize that social media isn't real. Those arguments you get into in the comment section are essentially meaningless and won't have any impact on your real life. Watching other people live their lives while you just bedrot isn't healthy. It is in fact quite unhealthy of a behavior when it comes to the human condition. Humans are social creatures, so it only seems natural that we would flock to social media comment sections to voice our opinions. But what happens when social media becomes a safe space away from reality? It becomes all-consuming and can cause problems for you in the real world. I believe as long as we remember that social media is fake, we can live alongside it and the algorithm in a healthy way. In conclusion, don't be like Clark, don't stagnate, and don't let social media suck away your time and energy.